She stood in the rain for weeks, waiting for a husband who abandoned her. But when a mysterious cowboy rode in, he didn't just change her life, he refused to leave. What happened next will break your heart, and then heal it. She waited in the rain. The sky over Wyoming Territory had turned dark long before the rain began. Heavy clouds rolled across the endless plains, swallowing the sun and casting a cold, gray shadow over everything in sight. The wind picked up slowly at first, whispering through the tall grass, then howling like a warning no one could ignore. But Zara Mills didn't move. She stood barefoot in the mud outside her small wooden ranch house, her dress already damp from the mist that clung to the air. Her hands hung loosely at her sides, fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from something much deeper. She was waiting. The first drop of rain hit her cheek. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the sky opened, pouring down relentlessly. The ground beneath her turned soft and slippery, her feet sinking deeper into the earth with every passing moment. Still, she didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the narrow dirt road stretching far into the distance, the same road her husband had ridden down 3 weeks ago. And never returned. 3 weeks earlier, it had been a quiet morning. Too quiet. Zara remembered it clearly, the way Thomas avoided her eyes, the way his movements felt rushed, distant. He had packed a small bag without explanation, his face unreadable. "Where are you going?" she had asked, her voice soft but uneasy. "Just business," he muttered, not looking at her. "I'll be back." "How long?" He paused at the door. Zara held her breath, but he never answered. Instead, he stepped outside, mounted his horse, and rode away. No goodbye, no promise, just silence. Back to the storm. Now, 3 weeks later, that silence had become unbearable. Zara had waited every single day. At first, she stayed busy, cleaning, cooking, fixing what little she could around the ranch. She told herself he'd return any moment, that she just needed to be patient. But patience slowly turned into doubt. Doubt turned into fear, and fear, into heartbreak. Neighbors had stopped coming by. Whispers had started spreading. "A man doesn't leave like that unless he ain't comin' back. She's alone now. That land won't stay hers for long." Zara heard it all, but she refused to believe it. Not until now. The weight of reality. The rain soaked through her dress completely now, clinging to her skin as the wind cut through her like a blade. Her lips trembled, not from the cold, but from the truth she had been avoiding. "He's not coming back," she whispered to herself. The words felt heavy, final. Her knees weakened slightly, but she forced herself to stay standing. Because if she walked back inside, if she let go of that last bit of hope, then it would mean it was real. That she had been abandoned. Left behind in a world that didn't forgive women who stood alone. A dangerous silence. The ranch had never felt this empty before. No laughter. No footsteps. No voice calling her name. Just the sound of rain hitting the ground, over and over again. And beneath it, a growing fear. Because being alone out here wasn't just lonely. It was dangerous. Men passed through these lands all the time, traders, drifters, outlaws. Some were kind, others were not. Zara wrapped her arms around herself, finally shivering as the cold began to settle into her bones. She should go inside, she knew that, but something kept her rooted in place. As if leaving this spot meant giving up completely. The sound that changed everything. Then, through the storm, a sound broke the silence. Hoofbeats. Faint. Distant. Zara's head snapped up. Her heart began to race. No, it couldn't be. Could it? She stepped forward, her feet splashing through the muddy water. The sound grew louder. Closer. Her breathing quickened. "Thomas," she whispered, barely audible over the rain. A figure appeared on the horizon. Blurry at first, just a shadow moving through the storm. But it was a rider. A man on horseback, coming straight toward the ranch. Hope exploded inside her chest so suddenly it hurt. She took another step forward. And another. Tears mixed with rain on her face as she tried to see clearly. "Please," she whispered. "Please let it be him." The rider came closer, closer, until finally, she saw his face, and her heart broke all over again. It wasn't Thomas. A stranger arrives. The horse slowed to a stop just a few feet away from her. The man sitting on it was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat soaked from the rain. His hat cast a shadow over his eyes, but there was something sharp in his gaze, something observant. Something different. He studied her for a moment, taking in everything, the soaked dress, the trembling hands, the emptiness in her eyes. "You been standin' out here long?" he asked, his voice calm, steady. Zara didn't answer. She couldn't, because the hope she had just felt had been ripped away again. "I asked you something," he said, slightly louder this time. She finally looked up at him. Her expression was cold now. Guarded. "It doesn't matter," she replied quietly. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head slightly. "Name's Caleb Carter." The name meant nothing to her. "Passing through," he added. Zara nodded once, turning away from him. "Then keep passing." For a moment, there was only silence. Rain pouring, wind howling, but the man didn't move. The moment that changes everything. Instead, he slowly swung his leg off the horse and stepped down into the mud. Zara turned back, confused, and slightly alarmed. "What are you doing?" she asked. Caleb tied his horse loosely to the wooden fence, his movements calm, unhurried. "Getting out of the rain," he said simply. Her eyes narrowed. "You can't just stay here." He glanced at her. "Don't see anyone else using the place." Her jaw tightened. "I live here, alone?" he asked. The question hit harder than she expected. Zara straightened. "That's none of your concern." Caleb studied her again, this time more carefully, as if he could see right through her words, into the truth she was trying to hide. "Looks like it is," he said quietly. The stranger who wouldn't leave. The thunder rolled louder now, shaking the sky as if the storm itself was angry. Zara stood in the rain, her breath uneven, her eyes locked on the stranger who had just stepped into her life without permission. Caleb Carter. A man she didn't know. A man who should have kept riding. But didn't. "You should leave," she said again, her voice firmer this time, though it trembled slightly beneath the surface. Caleb didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't even look offended. Instead, he glanced toward the house, then back at her. "You gonna stand out here all night?" he asked calmly. "That's none of your concern. It is if I'm about to walk into your house and find you frozen out here in the morning." Her jaw tightened. "You're not walking into my house." But before she could stop him, he turned and started toward the door. Crossing the line, Zara's heart jumped. "What are you doing?" she shouted, rushing after him through the mud. Caleb reached the porch, his boots thudding heavily against the wood as rainwater dripped from his coat. "Getting dry," he said simply. "You don't get to decide that." He paused at the door, then slowly turned to face her. For a brief moment, their eyes met. There was no arrogance in his expression. No threat, just something steady, unshaken. "You can stand out here and argue," he said quietly, "or you can come inside before you get sick." Zara froze, because as much as she hated it, he was right. The cold had already seeped into her bones. Her fingers were numb, her body shaking, and the truth, she didn't have the strength to fight anymore. Not tonight, not in this storm. Inside the silence, Caleb pushed the door open and stepped inside. Zara hesitated only a second, then followed. The house felt even colder than before. Darker, Like it had lost something important. Or someone. Water dripped from Zara's dress onto the wooden floor as she stepped in, wrapping her arms around herself tightly. Caleb removed his hat, setting it aside, then looked around the room slowly. Taking everything in. The worn furniture. The empty table. The untouched kitchen. No warmth. No life. No fire. He asked. Zara didn't answer. She just stared at the ground. I didn't feel like it, she muttered after a moment. Caleb nodded once, as if he understood more than she had said. Without another word, he moved toward the fireplace. A man of action, Zara watched him carefully now. Every movement, every step, he crouched down, gathering what little wood remained beside the hearth. "You don't need to do that," she said quietly. He didn't respond. Instead, he struck a match. The small flame flickered in the darkness. Then caught. Slowly, the fire began to grow. Light filled the room. Warmth followed. Zara hadn't realized how cold she was until that moment. Her body instinctively leaned closer. But she quickly caught herself and stepped back. "I said you don't need to help me." Caleb stood, brushing his hands off. "I didn't do it for you," he said calmly. She frowned. "Then why?" He looked at the fire. "Because this place looked like it needed it." Walls began to crack. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it felt different, less empty. Zara sat slowly on the edge of a chair, her eyes fixed on the fire as it crackled softly. The storm outside raged on, but inside, there was a small sense of calm. A fragile one. "You always walk into strangers' homes like this?" she asked after a while. Caleb leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Only when the door's not locked." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I didn't lock it because I wasn't expecting anyone." "Looks like you were," he said. The words hit her hard. Her eyes flickered up to his. "What's that supposed to mean?" He held her gaze. "You were waiting for someone." Zara's chest tightened. "I wasn't waiting for you." "I know," he said quietly. The truth she couldn't hide. The firelight danced across her face, revealing everything she had been trying to hide. The exhaustion, the heartbreak, the loneliness. Caleb saw it all. "He left, didn't he?" he asked. Zara's breath caught. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she looked away. "You don't know anything about me." "Don't need to," Caleb replied. "I've seen that look before." She clenched her fists. "Then you've seen wrong." He didn't argue, didn't push. He just waited. And somehow, that made it harder. Because there was no pressure. No judgment. Just silence. And space. Space she didn't want. Because if she filled it, she'd have to tell the truth. Breaking point. "I loved him." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Soft, fragile, but loud enough to fill the entire room. Zara's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't meant to say it out loud. But it was too late. The truth was there now. Between them, Caleb didn't react right away. He just looked at her. Really looked at her. "And he left anyway," he said quietly. Zara swallowed hard. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "He said he'd come back," she whispered. "But he didn't," Caleb replied. Her voice cracked slightly. "No, a different kind of man." The fire crackled louder as the storm outside began to slow, the rain softening into a steady rhythm. Zara wiped her face quickly, turning away. "I don't need your pity." Caleb shook his head. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" He pushed himself off the wall and stepped a little closer, not too close, just enough. "It's the truth." She laughed bitterly. "The truth is he's gone." "Yeah," Caleb said, "and the truth is, you're still here." She looked at him again, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means he walked away," Caleb said, his voice steady. "But you didn't." Zara stared at him, unsure how to respond. Because no one had said that before. No one had looked at her like that. Like she wasn't broken. Like she hadn't lost. The man who stayed. Morning came quietly. The storm had passed, leaving behind a heavy stillness that hung over the land like a secret waiting to be told. Zara woke to the faint sound of movement. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was, or what had happened. Then, it came rushing back. The rain, the stranger, Caleb. Her eyes opened quickly, and she sat up from the small chair where she had fallen asleep near the fire. The flames had burned low, but the warmth still lingered, and the house didn't feel as empty. Zara's gaze shifted toward the doorway. He was still there, a stranger in the morning light. Caleb stood near the window, his back turned, looking out over the ranch. The early morning light outlined his figure, tall, steady, unmoving. Like he belonged there. Zara frowned slightly. He should have been gone. Most men would have left at first light, especially men with no reason to stay. But Caleb Carter, he hadn't moved an inch. "You're still here," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. He didn't turn around immediately. "Looks that way," he replied. Zara stood slowly, brushing her damp hair back. "The storm's over. I noticed." She crossed her arms. "Then why haven't you left?" Now he turned. His eyes met hers, calm, unreadable. Didn't seem right. Her brows furrowed. What didn't? Leaving. The word hung between them. Simple, but heavy. In spoken questions. Zara didn't know what to do with that answer. Didn't know how to respond. Because part of her wanted him to go. Needed him to go. Before she got used to not being alone. But another part, a quieter, more dangerous part, was relieved he hadn't. "You don't even know me," she said. Caleb shrugged slightly. "Don't need to know everything to see what's in front of me." "And what is that?" He glanced around the house. A woman trying to hold everything together, by herself. Zara's jaw tightened. "I've been doing just fine." Caleb raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, he turned back toward the window. "Fence on the west side's broken," he said casually. "And your horse looks like it hasn't been fed right in days." Her chest tightened again. Because he wasn't wrong. "I said I'm fine," she repeated, more firmly this time. He nodded. "All right," but something in his tone made it clear. He didn't believe her. The line between help and pride. Zara stepped forward, frustration rising now. "I don't need your help." Caleb turned to face her fully. "Never said you did." "Then stop acting like I do." A brief silence followed. Then he spoke, quieter this time. "All right." And just like that, he grabbed his hat, walked to the door, and opened it. Zara blinked. Wait, was he actually leaving? Her heart did something strange. A quick, unexpected drop. Caleb stepped outside. The door remained open behind him. Zara stood frozen. Why did that feel wrong? The unexpected turn. She moved before she could think. Wait. The words slipped out. Soft. But enough. Caleb stopped. Slowly. He turned his head slightly, not fully, just enough to hear her. Zara swallowed. She didn't even know why she had said it. But now it was out there. "You don't have to leave like that," she added, trying to steady her voice. A faint pause. Then Caleb turned back completely. "You just told me to." "I didn't mean." She stopped herself, frustrated. "I just meant you don't get to decide things for me." He studied her for a moment. Then nodded. "Fair enough." Another silence. Longer this time. More complicated. A fragile agreement. Finally, Zara exhaled slowly. "You can stay, for now," she said, almost reluctantly. Caleb didn't smile. Didn't react much at all. Just a simple nod. "For now works." Zara crossed her arms again, trying to regain control of the situation. But you follow my rules. All right, you don't go through my things. Wasn't planning to. And you don't act like you own this place. Caleb tilted his head slightly. Never said I did. She hesitated, then added quietly, and you leave when I ask you to. This time, Caleb didn't answer right away. A small pause. Then, okay, work begins. The rest of the morning passed in silence. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It wasn't empty. It was active. Caleb stepped outside and got to work without asking again. Fixing the broken fence, checking the barn, carrying water. Zara watched from the doorway at first. Suspicious, confused, because men didn't do this. Not without expecting something in return. But Caleb didn't ask for anything. Didn't even look at her much. He just worked, like it mattered. Something begins to change. By midday, the ranch looked different. Not perfect, but alive again. Zara stepped outside slowly, her eyes scanning everything. The repaired fence, the horse eating calmly, the barn door fixed. Her chest tightened, not with pain this time, but something unfamiliar. Gratitude and fear, because this feeling of things getting better, it came with a risk. What happens when he leaves too? She whispered to herself. Her eyes drifted to Caleb. He stood by the fence, wiping sweat from his brow. For a moment, he looked up. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something neither of them spoke out loud. When the past comes back. The sun dipped low over the Wyoming plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. For the first time in weeks, the ranch didn't feel broken. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive again. Zara stood near the fence, her fingers lightly resting on the freshly repaired wood. A soft breeze moved through her hair, carrying with it the scent of earth after rain. Behind her, she could hear the steady rhythm of movement, tools being set down, boots brushing against dirt. Caleb, he had been working all day. Without complaint, without expectation, without asking for anything in return. And that was what unsettled her the most. A silence that meant something. You didn't have to do all this, Zara said without turning around. There was a brief pause. Then Caleb's voice came, calm as ever. Didn't do it for you. She almost smiled. Almost. Then why? He stepped closer, stopping a few feet behind her. Because it needed doing. Zara turned slightly, glancing at him. That's not an answer. It's the only one I got. She studied his face. Still unreadable. Still steady. How long are you planning to stay? She asked. Caleb looked out toward the horizon. Not sure. That's not how people usually live. He shrugged. Works for me. Zara shook her head softly. You don't belong here. Caleb's eyes shifted to her. Maybe not, he said. But neither does being left behind. The words hit deeper than she expected. She looked away quickly. The feeling she couldn't ignore. Days passed, and Caleb stayed. Each morning, Zara found something else had been fixed, cleaned, or improved. The ranch was slowly coming back to life. And so was she. They began to talk more. Small things at first. Weather, work, simple questions, simple answers. But beneath it all, something was growing. Something neither of them named. Because naming it would make it real. And real things, they could be lost. The moment everything changed, it happened in the evening. The sky was quiet again, stars beginning to appear one by one. Zara stood on the porch, watching the horizon. Caleb leaned against the wooden post nearby. You ever think about leaving? He asked suddenly. Zara frowned slightly. Leaving what? This place. She shook her head. This is my home. He looked at her. Even after everything, her voice softened. It's all I have. Caleb hesitated, then said something he hadn't planned to say. You could have more. Zara's heart skipped. She turned to him slowly. What does that mean? Before he could answer, a sound broke through the quiet. Hoofbeats. The sound of the past. Zara froze. Her breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. But she knew that sound. She would recognize it anywhere. Her heart began to race. Caleb straightened, his expression sharpening as he turned toward the road. The hoofbeats grew louder, closer, until finally, a rider appeared in the distance. Zara's hands started to shake. Because this time, it was him, the man who left. Thomas Mills rode into the yard like nothing had changed. Like he still belonged there. Like he hadn't disappeared for weeks without a word. Zara took a slow step forward. Her emotions twisted together. Shock, anger, confusion. "You came back," she said, her voice barely steady. Thomas pulled his horse to a stop, looking down at her with a faint, almost casual expression. "Course I did," he said. "This is my land." The words hit like a slap. Zara's eyes hardened. "No," she said quietly. "It's not." Thomas frowned slightly, noticing Caleb for the first time. His gaze sharpened. "And who's this?" he asked. Caleb stepped forward, calm and steady as ever. "Name's Caleb." Thomas looked him up and down, then let out a short, bitter laugh. "You found yourself company already." Zara's chest tightened. But this time, she didn't stay silent. "The woman who changed." "No," she said firmly. "You left, remember?" Thomas's expression darkened. "I had things to take care of." "For 3 weeks." Zara shot back. He didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. Zara took another step forward, her voice stronger now. "You didn't write. You didn't send word. You just disappeared." Thomas's jaw tightened. "I came back, didn't I?" Zara shook her head slowly. "That's not how it works." The tension builds. The air between them turned heavy. Dangerous. Thomas looked at Caleb again. "So what? He's been staying here. In my house." Caleb didn't flinch. "She's been managing just fine," he said. Thomas scoffed. "Doesn't look like it." That was the wrong thing to say. Zara stepped in between them slightly. "I don't need you to decide that for me." Thomas's eyes snapped back to her. "You're my wife." The words echoed loudly, but they didn't hold the same weight anymore. Zara felt it. The difference. The distance. The truth. "No," she said quietly. "I was the one who stayed." The wind moved softly across the ranch, carrying a tension that hadn't existed before. Everything felt still. Too still. Zara stood between two men, one from her past, and one who had unexpectedly become part of her present. Thomas sat tall on his horse, his expression no longer casual. The confidence he had arrived with was beginning to crack. Caleb stood beside her, silent but steady. He didn't speak, didn't interfere, because he knew this wasn't his decision to make. The man who left. Thomas let out a breath, his tone shifting slightly. "You're being dramatic," he said, trying to regain control. "I told you I had business." Zara didn't move. "Business doesn't take 3 weeks without a word," she replied. His jaw tightened. "I'm here now. That's what matters." Zara shook her head slowly. "No, it's not." Those 4 words changed everything. Thomas frowned, clearly not expecting resistance. Not from her. Not from the woman he thought would always be waiting. "You think you can just turn your back on me?" he asked, his voice hardening. Zara's hands trembled slightly at her sides. But she didn't step back. "You already turned your back on me," she said. The truth finally spoken. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched, thick with everything that had been left unsaid for too long. Then Zara took a deep breath. "I stood out here every day," she said, her voice quieter now, but stronger than ever. "Waiting for you." Thomas looked away briefly, uncomfortable. "I thought, maybe something happened to you," she continued. "I told myself you'd come back." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, she didn't hide them. "But you didn't," she said. "Not when it mattered." Thomas shifted in his saddle. "You're overthinking this." Zara let out a small, broken laugh. "No," she said. "For the first time, I'm seeing it clearly. The man who stayed." She turned slightly, her eyes flickering toward Caleb. He didn't say anything, didn't move, but his presence was there. Steady, unshaken, a quiet contrast to everything Thomas wasn't. Zara looked back at her husband. "When you left, you didn't just leave this place," she said. "You left me." Thomas's voice sharpened. "And he didn't," he snapped, nodding toward Caleb. "You think he's different?" Zara paused. Because that question, it mattered, more than anything. Her eyes met Caleb's, and in that moment, she saw no doubt, no hesitation, just truth. "The choice." Zara turned back to Thomas. "He didn't promise me anything," she said. "He didn't owe me anything." Thomas frowned. "Then why is he still here?" Zara's voice softened, but didn't weaken. "Because he chose to stay." Silence fell again, this time heavier than before. Thomas's expression darkened. "You really think that means something?" Zara stepped forward. "It means everything. The breaking point." Thomas let out a bitter laugh. "This is a mistake," he said. "You're choosing a stranger over your own husband." Zara shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "I'm choosing myself." The words hit harder than anything else she had said. Even Caleb looked slightly surprised. Because this wasn't just about him. This was about her finally seeing her own worth. The end of the past. Thomas stared at her, searching for hesitation. For weakness. For the woman he used to know. But she wasn't there anymore. Finally, he scoffed, pulling the reins of his horse. "You'll regret this," he muttered. Zara didn't respond, because for the first time, she knew she wouldn't. Thomas turned his horse and rode away, the same way he had before. But this time, Zara didn't watch him go. A quiet beginning. The ranch fell silent again. But it wasn't empty. Not anymore. Zara stood still for a moment, letting everything settle. The pain, the relief, the freedom. Then slowly, she turned. Caleb was still there, exactly where he had been. He hadn't moved, hadn't tried to step in, hadn't tried to claim anything. And somehow, that meant more than anything else. "The question that matters." "You didn't say anything," Zara said softly. Caleb shrugged slightly. "Wasn't my place." She studied him for a moment. And now, a small pause. The kind that holds weight. Caleb met her eyes. "Now it's your choice." Zara's heart raced, because she understood what he meant. This wasn't about replacing one man with another. It wasn't about needing someone. It was about choosing something real. "The one who stayed." "Why did you stay?" she asked quietly. Caleb didn't answer right away. Then, "Because some things are worth staying for," he said. Her breath caught. "Even if they're not yours?" she asked. He held her gaze. "Especially then." The ending. Zara stepped closer. Not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of something new. Something stronger. Hope. The wind moved gently through the fields, no longer harsh, no longer cold. Everything felt different, like the storm had finally passed. "You can stay," she said softly. Caleb raised an eyebrow slightly. "Thought that was already settled." Zara almost smiled. "No," she said. "I mean, you can stay." This time, she meant it, and this time, he didn't hesitate. "All right," he said. "Some people walk away when things get hard. But the ones who stay, they're the ones worth holding on to." Please friends spot my channel, subscribe for more stories. Like, share, comment.